While the aftermath of the murder of a French teacher and President Macron's subsequent reaction has drawn a spotlight onto the current relations between Turkey and France, this is merely just another symptom in the current trajectory of the bilateral relations of the two nations. Over time, as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, has become more obsolete and as Washington has drifted further away, Paris and Ankara have seen lanes open up for their own respective geopolitical interests. Divergences in regional affairs, combined with the personalities of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and French President Emmanuel Macron, make for a situation that questions the unity of NATO. Hello, my name is Joey, and this is the Geopolitical Insurgent, and in this episode we will be discussing the state of Franco-Turkish relations. The beheading of French teacher Samuel Paty by an extremist on October 16, 2020 came following the teacher showcasing his students Charlie Hebdo cartoons caricaturing the Islamic prophet Muhammad. These cartoons are seen as offensive by many Muslims in both France and the wider world, while President Macron reacted to the murder by defending the actions of the professor and the cartoons as an expression of free speech. In addition to receiving much scrutiny for his comments from around the world, with many people in Muslim-majority countries calling for a boycott on French goods, Macron's comments of describing Islam, quote-unquote, in crisis worldwide drew a sharp rebuke from President Erdogan of Turkey. Erdogan responded by questioning the mental health of Macron and called for a boycott of French goods, while Paris recalled its ambassador from Ankara. While lines have been drawn in the debate regarding the caricature of the prophet between Macron and Erdogan, the hard reactions from both simply reflect the ongoing trajectories of the two countries and the lines that already exist between the two NATO allies. Despite being NATO allies, Paris and Ankara find themselves on the opposite side of a number of regional conflicts spanning each other's respective geopolitical sphere of influences. First in Libya, which is an important supplier of energy and a gateway to its sphere of influence in sub-Saharan Africa, Paris supports the Libyan National Army under Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, based in eastern Libya. Ankara, meanwhile, supports the UN-recognized Government of National Accord, or GNA, and its forces based in Tripoli. While Paris backs the GNA on paper, as the two have formal diplomatic relations, it is clear that Paris is playing a double game in Libya, as the former was supportive of the Libyan National Army's offensive on Tripoli and has given covert support to Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar's forces. This offensive was ultimately defeated by the GNA once Ankara intervened militarily, decisively altering the balance of power in the country's long proxy war. While the conflict is currently in ceasefire, Ankara's interests in Libya stem from its desire to strengthen its position in the eastern Mediterranean. Before intervening, Ankara reached a maritime demarcation agreement with Tripoli, which allows Turkey to counter the ambitions of Greece, Israel, and Cyprus in exporting eastern Mediterranean natural gas to Europe via the East Med pipeline. This maritime accord and subsequent maritime zone, combined with enforcement, effectively gives Ankara the final say on pipeline routes delivering East Med natural gas to Europe. As this would weaken the leverage of many European countries, Brussels came out against the accord. Paris in particular denounced the deal and has since actively taken steps diplomatically and militarily to assist Greece and Cyprus in its disputes with Turkey in the eastern Mediterranean. While the Maritime Accord does violate the International Convention on the Law of the Sea, it's worth noting that Ankara is not a signatory to the treaty. Nevertheless, when Ankara sent research vessels protected by its military into these disputed waters back in August, Paris responded by sending fighter jets and vessels to Greece. With the two recently in a confrontation back in June and tough talk between both sides since, the Eastern Mediterranean remains an area of high tension and conflicting interest between Paris and Ankara. In Syria, France backs the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces, dominated by the Kurdish separatist group the People's Protection Units, or YPG, while Turkey has sent its forces into Syria along with mercenaries to battle these groups. The proxy conflict in the Levant and Middle East in general between the two will only further as both sides become further entrenched in the region. In the Caucasus, Turkey supports Azerbaijan, while France supports Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Baku and Yerevan, which recently ended for the time being. Macron and Erdogan are both leaders with strong personalities and ambitious regional agendas. Macron has sought a greater role for France in Europe, frequently attempting to outflank Germany in European affairs while aspiring to create a European army. The latter in particular is an indication of Paris's dwindling outlook on NATO, with Macron calling the transatlantic alliance quote-unquote brain dead, which drew a sharp rebuke from Erdogan. US President Donald Trump's bombastic and unilateral approach in Washington's relations with Brussels and NATO has opened up a bigger lane for Paris to assert itself in Europe. Turkey is another country that has become more assertive in its foreign policy in recent years. While Paris can rely on Brussels taking its side, such as over Macron's remarks, Ankara's refugee deal with the European Union do provide it leverage over Brussels. Between its close cooperation with Russia, including over the purchase of S-400 missile defense systems, its Eastern Mediterranean and Balkans policy, and its interventions into Syria and Libya, Ankara seeks to establish itself as a standalone independent power and reclaim its role as a bridge between East and West, a feature during the days of the Ottoman Empire. Between Erdogan's neo-Ottoman and Macron's neo-Napoleonic foreign policy approaches, France and Turkey are two countries that seek to take advantage of a global order that is entering a multipolar phase. Turkey is waking up from its century-long geopolitical nap, while the days of France being in second place in Europe are over. The ambitious foreign policies are not only nostalgic, but divert attention away from the respective domestic political issues of both Macron and Erdogan. While the Joe Biden presidency will certainly attempt to reclaim its leadership role in NATO, France and Turkey are still expected to continue on their current paths. These two trajectories and a divergence of interest not only make France and Turkey the bilateral relationship to watch throughout the decade, but threaten the stability of NATO itself. This was another report by the Geopolitical Insurgent. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.